Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video we have my Game Week 32 team selection and the free hit is active. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. But without further ado, let's jump into it. Before we take a look at my team, I did just want to give a massive shout out to Surfshark as they have sponsored today's video. Surfshark is a VPN service which allows you to browse content from over 100 different countries across the world by changing your virtual location. However, they don't stop there. Surfshark's Clean Web 2.0 feature allows you to block ads, block pop-ups, and monitor and avoid data breaches and vicious malware attacks. This service is available across all devices as well, so once you have signed up, you can use that on every single device. Another feature which I use a lot when I'm traveling around is the ability to stay safe on public Wi-Fi. Incredibly useful. I use this a lot on my phone and also on my laptop when I'm working as well. Not only are Surfshark sponsoring today's video, but they are also offering you guys 83% off plus a further 3 months for free when you sign up using the code FPL Raptor or click the link in the description. I think that's an incredibly generous offer. It allows you that peace of mind and staying safe online, and it's a product that I have been using for the last 6 months or so as well. So massive shout out to Surfshark for sponsoring today's video. But without further ado, let's take a look at my free hit team. So moving into my Game Week 32 free hit team, a few things to note. Firstly, this team is definitely not locked in. I've been tinkering a lot. And whilst a lot of the team will be fairly template, if you go and watch another YouTuber's video on this, it will be a very similar team. There are some subtle differences. And in a week where a lot of people will be playing their free hit, getting those subtle differences correct can make a huge difference in a small green or even a red or a massive green arrow. So I do want to get those final few bits right. And one simple change, for example, going double Liverpool defense versus double Liverpool attack, that then means that another player has to change as well. So there could be a couple of changes in this team, and I will talk about that throughout. I've also got a list to the side of me, which is some players that I want to discuss that I haven't managed to include, but that I still think are great options because I know I'll forget someone otherwise. So with this team, I've got 2.1 million in the bank, but I don't think that funds are going to be an issue for anyone, really, unless you're trying to squeeze Kane and Salah and Trent and maybe Robertson in defense and some expensive attackers. Most people probably aren't running out of money, and as you can see, I've actually got a decent bench as well. So 2.1 in the bank. We'll start in goal. I've got Johnston at the moment. I know a lot of people are just kind of defaulting to him because it's a decent fixture. He makes quite a few saves. I don't think he's the only keeper you can consider. I actually like Daniel Everson as an option. I like Leno, as you can see on the bench as well. I even like Emi Martinez if you want to back the Villa defence to keep a clean sheet away at Brentford. But for me, Johnston has everything that you would want. He has a decent fixture against a team that aren't great going forward, and Crystal Palace actually concede a lot of low XG opportunities. Now, what we mean by that is simply they concede chances that you would expect the keeper to save, but you still want to get a save point for, which is perfect. You don't want to back a defence that concede a lot of big chances and a lot of high XG opportunities. And Crystal Palace under Hodgson, but across the season, they tend to be fairly rigid in like the middle of their defence, which basically means that they concede shots from out wide and from outside the box. So I feel like Johnston has it in his locker to get those big hauls. And even if Everton do score, which I actually think is a small possibility or a reasonable possibility, he should still get a decent amount of points just through making saves. Now, the reason I say that's a reasonable possibility is actually Everton's data isn't terrible going forward. And I've just got a bit of a feeling that it's just a classic free hit thing. And it's probably more narrative bias than anything. I can see us all doubling up on the Crystal Palace defence and someone like Neil Maupay scoring or something like that, or a Wobie, and all of a sudden we've lost 2 of our clean sheets. And I don't really back any of the fixtures enough this week to want to double up on any of the defences. So I've thought about it and I'm going to discuss that in a second. But for that reason, I don't have someone like an Anderson, a Gahey, or a Mitchell. As you can see, I do have Anderson on my bench. And around the Palace defenders, there's a few nuances here. This video is going to be quite long, by the way, because I've thought about a lot of this in detail. With the Palace defenders, I feel like the defender with the greatest underlying data and the greatest goal threat is going to be Anderson for you. But if you want to try and target the fixture, I actually really like Mitchell, because if you look at where Everton concede a lot of their chances, it's usually in the flanks. So I feel like the player that suits the fixture the most is probably Mitchell, but if you're just going off of data and you want the player that's most likely to get you a goal, I feel like it's Anderson. And if you're looking for the player that is best for bonus points, Gahey has been really, really good for bonus points recently. So I don't really mind any of their options there, but for me, it would be Anderson if I end up starting any, and I've currently got Anderson on the bench. I'll move on to my mega differential, who's only owned by 0.1%. And I'm going to try and explain why I've got him, and that is Harry Souttar. Now, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'll be entirely honest. I don't watch a massive amount of Leicester. I obviously know who he is. The reason for picking him is twofold, maybe threefold. The first is I've just got a bit of a feeling that Leicester keep a clean sheet. I've got no data to back that up. Leicester are pretty shocking defensively. I just look at that and think that's the fixture I want. Wolves are really, really bad going forward. So Wolves have not been excellent as an attacking sort of outfit across the entirety of the season and in recent games. And then the main reason is post-World Cup, so since Game Week 17, Wolves have conceded the most attempts from set plays. Harry Souttar's data is really, really good. So he's actually sitting at a 0.21 or 0.22 expected goal involvement, and a lot of that is made up through expected goals. So I feel like he's a decently sized sort of goal threat. He's got decent data. It's a really nice fixture, and I just don't want to back any of the other defences. I know I could go for a Crystal Palace double up. We'll discuss in a second. I could go for a Liverpool double up. I could even back Trippier and Botman as well and go against Spurs. But to be honest, I don't really like the look of any of the fixtures this week, and I quite like the idea. I know it's not a big differential considering he's only a defender, but I quite like the idea of picking at least one differential in my team. Now, I've got just a note, like I said, to the side of me about other things that I've considered. You can see Moreno on the bench. Aston Villa have been really good defensively recently, but I'm backing Brentford to score. And whilst Moreno's attacking data has been good, I would like to back a fixture. I think a chance for clean sheet is slightly higher. So it's not that I think that Villa are bad. I think they're excellent. It's just I fancy Brentford to score in that game. And you've got to try and predict the way that you think these results will go. The things that I've considered is Arsenal defence. As you can see, there are no Arsenal defenders, which means I do have an Arsenal triple up in the attack, which we'll move on to. So I've definitely considered the likes of Gabriel, Ben White, maybe even Zinchenko if he's fit. But for me, I just feel like there's so much upside in that attack that for now I don't have that. I've obviously considered double Liverpool defence, but as you can see, I don't, which once again means that I have double Liverpool attack. Double Palace I've considered, and double Newcastle. So these are some of the things that I've thought about in that Harry Souttar spot. Trent, Trippier and Johnston are fairly locked in most of my drafts. It's just that final spot. I feel like I have a bit of fun with it. Take a punt. But for me, I'm kind of backing it. I could also default to Castagna. You guys know, if you've watched my channel for a while, you know how much I love Castagna. So that's an option too. But for now, I'm pretty happy with the defence. Let's move on to the midfield. So the midfield is kind of fairly template and fairly standard, as you would imagine. I don't think the three forwards are, personally. I've gone for something slightly different there. But the midfield is fairly template. But I don't feel like we should use template as a dirty word. I don't feel like we should avoid obvious picks just for the sake of being different, unless that's the way you want to play the game. For me, 3 of these picks make a lot of sense, and then 1 of them I'm still thinking about. So we'll start with the more obvious picks. I do have Mohamed Salah, and he does have the armband at the moment. If I knew that Salah wasn't on penalties, I would probably still captain him, but it would make me think a little bit more. The issue with going for someone like a Saka instead is we don't know if Saka's on penalties. We actually don't know who will be on penalties for Arsenal after Saka missed. I assume it's still Saka, but no one else stands out to me with like outrageously good data, really good conversion, the perfect fixture also on penalties. So if there was a viable alternative, then maybe. But Salah's data without the penalties, non-penalty expected goal involvement is still really strong. He played very, very well against Leeds, and I fancy this as a fixture. Nottingham Forest away from home have always been pretty terrible this season. They're great at the City ground, but I really back Liverpool to get 3 or 4 goals here. And I feel like they'll try now. And again, it will be an attempt. We don't know what will happen, but I think they'll try and kick on after that Leeds game. So Salah's got the armband at the moment. I have Martinelli and Saka. I feel like Martinelli is the most obvious Arsenal pick. His data is so, so good. He looks really nailed at the moment. He's the biggest goal threat. And Southampton concede most of their chances down their right flank. So if you're thinking about matchups again and you're thinking about the way that this game might go, Martinelli versus whoever plays right back for them, I think like that's a pretty decent matchup, and that's where they're conceding a lot of their chances. So Martinelli feels like an obvious pick. And then I've got Bukayo Saka as the other Arsenal midfielder. I could go for Ødegaard here, and I know a lot of people have gone off Saka, and Saka's data recently hasn't been great, but to be honest, across the season it hasn't. And if you've watched my content all season, I didn't own Saka for such a long period, and I kept getting punished because I kept saying, in a similar way to the way I have with Matoma, Saka's data is not good. Saka is not getting the amount of chances that Martinelli and Ødegaard and Jesus does. He's not getting the amount of chances to create. He's just such an elite player. He will convert chances that others won't, and he doesn't need a lot of opportunities. But recently, there's been an even further drop-off in his data, and he's still passing the eye test, but he doesn't look quite at it. So I fully understand if you want to drop Saka, especially with the fact that we don't know if he's on penalties. My perception on it is I still think he is on penalties. His data is still okay, and it's a one-off game. And I feel like in a one-off game, betting on Bukayo Saka to do well at home against Southampton feels fine to me. If I was looking to bring in a midfielder, no, I would not be bringing in Saka at the moment. Absolutely not. I would go for Martinelli and maybe even Jesus ahead of Saka. But in a single game, I back him to do very well. Saka's data is also much stronger at home, like significantly stronger. It's something like a 0.62 expected goal involvement at home, and it's about a 0.2 away from home. So Saka is not good away from home, but a home fixture against bottom of the league feels great. So for those reasons, I do have Saka I guess you could look at Martinelli instead, or could even go for a defender and then go for someone else in that midfield spot. The fourth midfielder that I do have is GAKPO. This isn't just because he played well in game week 31. I'm not that reactionary. It's more so that I'm not overly keen, particularly, on any of the other midfielders. There are a couple of punts which I'll discuss in a second. And it's also that I don't really like the double defence. Liverpool continue to be really stinky in defence. They have been all season. And Robertson, the way that Liverpool are lining up at the moment, they're basically copying City. Trent goes into midfield, and Liverpool basically play with like a back three, which is Robertson, Van Dijk, and Konate. Robertson's not getting forward as much. And yes, he's on set pieces, but he's got very little open play goal threat at the moment. And I do like Van Dijk. And Forest have conceded quite a few opportunities from set pieces, but I just feel like there are better options than Van Dijk again in a single week. If you want to go for that header and you think he'll score a header, then he's a great option. But I feel like I prefer the double attack. And the issue I've got with Jota and Darwin is I feel like Jota could potentially be rotated with Darwin this week. I don't actually know. And also, I love so many of the forwards this week. I'm just sport for choice in those three spots. So it's basically process of elimination. I don't like the double defence. I don't feel completely comfortable with Jota and Darwin. I want a Liverpool triple up with a really nice home fixture against Forest. I'm ending up on GAKPO. So that's the kind of way that I'm thinking about it. The midfielders that I have considered outside of that, I've looked at Heung-min Son. I just don't like the fixture enough, and I think I'm back in Trippier here. So Heung-min Son's out. I've looked at Maddison as well. I know people won't like that, but his data is strong, and I do expect Leicester to win this game against Wolves. The other option is Jared Bowen. I do think Bournemouth are still conceding chances left, right, and centre. They've definitely improved going forward, but I would expect West Ham to do fairly well from an attacking perspective in this game. At least I think it will be kind of 2-1, 2-2, something like that, if I had to predict the way that the game would go. And then Eze or Elise, again, have entered my drafts in numerous different ways. At the moment, I've got Eze on my bench, but Eze has been in the starting 11 at points. I would quite like to have Eze into the starting 11 as well. I'm just not entirely sure that I'm backing Palace to go and absolutely batter Everton. I'm thinking if I were to predict the game, the way this game would go, again, I'm predicting like a 1-1, a 1-0, maybe a 2-1, 2-0. And as a result, I think there are fixtures, especially with my attackers, where I feel like there are more goals. And as a result, that's the reason that I've currently got GAKPO ahead of the likes of Eze, Bowen, and Maddison. So that's the current midfield. I would love to know down below, does your midfield look the same? Have you taken any exciting punts? There are even really exciting punts like a Jack Harrison or a Wilson. There are you could go completely out there. But for me, these four just make a lot of sense. Let's now move on to the three forwards. So moving on to the three forwards and looking at the team in its entirety, we'll start with Ollie Watkins. I'll hold my hands up here. I don't really like Ollie Watkins this week for some reason. Don't ask me why. I've just got a bit of a feeling that Brentford could do one over on Aston Villa. I know the data wouldn't suggest that. Recent form wouldn't suggest that. It's just a bit of a gut feeling that I've got, but not enough of a gut feeling to back against the data that I'm seeing at the moment. And it's absolutely ridiculous for Watkins and for Villa in general. Watkins is accumulating about a 0.6 expected goal involvement every single game for like the last 8 or 9 games in a row. Watkins' data is so strong. And I'm a very data-driven manager. Even if you're an eye test manager, it doesn't matter how you make your decisions in FPL. Ollie Watkins looks amazing at the moment. So I'm not just going to go on a random gut feeling and hunch that Ollie Watkins will blank, going against data, going against eye test. So everything suggests putting Ollie Watkins in your team is probably a good idea. So that's what I've done, but I wouldn't be shocked to see him blank this week. I don't think this is the best fixture for him away at Brentford. I've got the striker on the other team, and I genuinely believe that this will be a differential pick on the free hit. I have not seen many free hits with Tony. The reason for that is that Villa have been brilliant. Tony hasn't got many goals in recent weeks, and a lot of people also have Moreno or Mings in their team as well. A lot of people are really backing Villa. So I do not think that Tony will be particularly highly owned, and definitely on the free hits, I can't see many owning him. The reason I like Tony, he's so consistent. He scores every other week pretty much consistently as a pattern. He blanked last week, by the way, so will he score this week? We'll wait and find out. But it's a home fixture. He's actually slightly better away, but it's a decent home fixture for Brentford. He's on penalties, really strong data, super consistent, and I think he's one of the best striking options this week. So at the moment, backing against the crowd slightly, because I know people will be very big on Villa, I've got Tony in my team. My issue with that Tony spot, if I just go to my list over here, is there are 2 strikers that I really want in that Tony spot there. That is Solanke, who, in a similar way to Watkins, has been putting up really strong data on a consistent basis recently, is also on penalties. And Solanke, unlike Watkins, I suppose, has a really nice home fixture against West Ham. So Solanke is definitely a player that I've considered in that spot. And then a player that I've more recently considered, looking at the data and also just thinking about ways that you could back against the crowd slightly again, just to mix it up a little bit, is Isak. I think a lot of people will be put off by the Tottenham-Newcastle fixture because they find it difficult to predict which way it will go. I'm one of those people, to be honest. I don't have a clue which way this Newcastle-Spurs game will go. If you told me it was 3-3, I wouldn't be shocked. If you told me it was 0-0, I wouldn't be shocked. If you told me that Newcastle win comfortably, I wouldn't be shocked. The only thing I would be shocked with is Spurs winning comfortably, but as a result, Isak is really interesting to me too, and he's got very strong data. My issue with Isak is he's not going to get 90 minutes, or he's unlikely to, and there's a chance, although I don't believe it will be the case, that Wilson starts. So I think if I were to choose one of Isak and Solanke for that spot, it would be Solanke. So Tony versus Solanke is the one I'm struggling with. Let me know what you think down below. For what it's worth, I expect most of you to say Solanke because he seems to be the more popular choice in the free hit. And then the 11th player in the team is Gabriel Jesus. And I've been going back and forth on Jesus. I'll be entirely honest. I've been going Jesus, then going for a Gabriel or a Ben White in defence. The reason that I love Jesus is his data is exceptionally good. We're talking much better than Martinelli, Saka, Gakpo, Salah, Watkins, Tony. He's got the best data of anyone in this team. In fact, the only people with better data tends to be Haaland and Darwin. So I love Jesus for that reason. He's looked really good when coming back. He's linking up the Arsenal attack, and it's a really nice fixture. And Jesus, for me, is someone with an incredibly high ceiling. Not many people have the ceiling that Jesus has in attack. We've seen it in previous seasons. He got a 24-pointer, was it, last season? We know what he can do, and I like him for that reason there. The reason I don't like him is because I really do like the Arsenal defence, and I think that if I remove Jesus and put Gabriel in, I feel like that's almost a dead cert clean sheet. And I really like that because there aren't many other good defenders to choose from. And I also really like I said, Solanke, Isak. So looking at the team in its entirety, the thing that is likely to change in this team before the deadline, and again, you can tune into my deadline stream 2 hours before the deadline to see the final team. I'm very, very tempted to do Jesus and Sutar to Solanke and Gabriel, or Solanke and Ben White. So essentially switching that differential defender spot for an Arsenal defender and then going for Solanke as the striker. The other thing I could do is just simply switch Tony to Solanke if I want to. I guess I need to think about how much I want Solanke. Do I want to back against him? And also, do I want an Arsenal defender in there instead of Gabriel Jesus? I suppose I could also have an Arsenal defender instead of Sutar and then maybe remove Saka and put someone like a Jared Bowen in that Saka spot. But because I still think Saka's on penalties and because of how good Saka is at home, I think I want to keep Martinelli and Saka in my team. So let me know down below what you think of my team. Let me know if there was anything you'd change. Let me know if you have any spicy differentials as well. Very eager to hear. But I think the majority of this team's locked in. It's just that final defender spot. And then maybe Jesus and Tony. There's a chance that I change them out for maybe Solanke and then mix up the defence slightly. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 32 free hit team selection. As I said, subject to a few final changes. If you have enjoyed today's video, please do drop a like. Make sure to comment down below to feed the algorithm gods. Also, make sure to check out Surfshark. There will be a link down below. First link in the description. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers. Bye-bye.